How would you define toxic masculinity as a term in your own words?
Toxic masculinity, I would define as
there isn't a sort of logic to it.
What up, my people? This is your boy Agree to Disagree, and I'm coming at you with another video review. The video that we are reviewing today is called Students Hate Toxic Masculinity but Can't Define What It Is. Title definitely caught my eye, so I decided let's check it out together. Have not seen this, so I don't know what to expect. But we're gonna give it a look, and I'll give you my thoughts on it.
I'm Emma Michelle with Campus Reform. This week, Gillette released an ad taking on the subject of toxic masculinity. What exactly does that mean? Well, we are here at Georgetown University today asking students what they think about the issue. Do you think that toxic masculinity is a problem that we need to address in society?
In society, I'd say it definitely is something we should address.
It's definitely an issue that most of us face in some way or another.
I'm actually a women and gender studies minor, so we talk a lot about toxic masculinity in some of my classes.
I definitely think it is an issue at large.
I've absolutely heard of toxic masculinity, and I do think it's an issue.
I think it's a huge issue that should be addressed.
It's a real problem, especially for high school girls, as they start to try and break into the workforce. And
listen, you put toxic in front of anything, of course everyone's gonna be like, oh no, we don't want that. This is definitely bad, because you just called it toxic, right? So so of course everyone's gonna be like, let's let's get rid of that toxicness, you know what I mean? But what you don't want to do is get rid of masculinity. You do want to get rid of toxic behavior, but not masculinity. Let's continue.
There's people just kind of breaking them down, saying that it's not good enough because it's usually males.
Focusing on it would be worthwhile here for sure.
I think we need more ads like this because it brings attention to this very serious topic.
People have become more sensitive to it nowadays.
How would you define toxic masculinity as a term in your own words?
toxic masculinity, I would define as
there isn't a sort of logic to it. I feel like it's more just strutting your stuff and being manly beyond there being a point to be.
I don't really know.
The idea that men have to be a certain way, dominant, physically imposing and all, and to the extent where
and these constructs are not necessarily conducive to building strong relationships between different members and communities.
Toxic masculinity could be really anything, anything that puts men over females.
I guess maybe I would say just guys being expected to behave a certain way. And
Ooh, that's a tough question. I would say maybe the persistent reinforcement that being a man means a certain thing.
I guess just kind of the societal.
See, the thing is with toxic masculinity, most of the things that would be referenced into toxic masculinity would be bad with any gender, feeling that you are superior, exerting your power over someone, being controlling. Those things are just bad in general, and that stuff can be done amongst any gender. So if there was a woman who was in power and they use their power against someone, that can be done as well. Touching someone without their consent. I know plenty of women who touch guys without their consent, but it's not a big deal. Why? Because they are women.
Ideas of what it means to be masculine has kind of it's kind of become something so large that it's become very toxic.
The idea that you have to conform to traditional notions of what it means to be a man.
If you had to draw the line somewhere between what's toxic masculinity and what's just normal masculinity, how would you do that?
Like, I don't know, like, I think it's a very gray line, like, not one you would be able to easily distinguish.
Wow, that's a hard question.
If someone is, you know, feels like they can't cry or feels like they can't be open and emotional.
Where do you think the line is drawn between toxic masculinity and just regular male behavior?
Let me touch on a few things. So she mentioned, crying, and I will say this: it is okay for men to cry, but there's definitely a time and a place, right? We can't just be breaking down, at any situation and crying and tears coming down. There's so many times where it's so important for men to be able to channel their emotions, so this idea that men should never cry. No, it's okay for men to cry, but there is a time and a place, and that's why we need to teach our young men how to be men so they can know how to handle high stress situations. Because if there's a shooter on the loose, a fire breaks out, what you're going to need strong men to help protect and lead people to safety. So those kind of ideas of like, oh no, you can be all as soft as you want to and there's going to be no consequences. No, like, guys still need to have that mental toughness, because we need men as protectors, as leaders. You can't lead if you're so emotional and you're crying. I mean, imagine if your boss was like, getting really emotional and crying. Like, you can't. It's hard to make decisions when you're too emotional. So you need to learn how to challenge those things, how to channel those things. Excuse me.
That's a tough one.
I'd say when it goes against probably when what people might say about you is the main drive and you acting that sort of way, I feel like that is probably when toxic masculinity comes into play.
Maybe you draw the line at a place where somebody feels that just because of masculine norms they have to act a certain way and they're uncomfortable with that.
Once it becomes psychologically or mentally damaging to the individual, once they feel so under pressure that, their mental health gets disturbed or something like that, then I think that's where the line might be drawn.
I'm Emma Michelle with Campus Reform, and if you like what you just saw, click here for more content.
All right. So that's the end of the video. So what I also want to say on that is, this idea that when we tell men to be masculine, we're telling them all to be the exact same. That's not what it is at all. All right. So there can be different types of masculine men. You can be a scrawny, nerdy, masculine man, right? I mean, let's think of Steve Jobs, for example. You know what I mean? He's not a guy who's like lifting weights in the gym and watch. I don't even know if he watches sports, but you know what I mean. He seems like a guy who doesn't like watch sports or whatever the case may be. But he's into technology, but he's someone who can lead. He's someone who is assertive, right? He has a lot of masculine traits about him, which led him to the success that he has today. So I think this idea that, like masculinity is all about like these jock type, that's completely wrong. Like being muscular, being able to, you know what I mean? Like that has nothing to do with it. Or like playing sports. No, that has nothing to do with masculinity at all. And I think what it is people have the wrong idea of what masculinity is and what it's all about, or that you can't be a family man and be masculine, right? And you first have to understand that every man has masculine and feminine energy, right? So there's going to be certain times where men are going to come off more masculine, right? Like when you're doing, like when you are playing sports, because it's a competitive game. Being competitive is a masculine trait. So when you're doing certain things, you're going to come off more masculine. And so I think people just need to overall do some research on what masculinity is all about, and like do some research on it, because I mean I feel like we're at this point in time where we're making masculinity out to be this terrible thing, but it is, if you really do your research on what masculinity is, it's great. It's really great. Now, when you try to take it like this other stuff of this superiority thing, that has nothing to do with masculinity. That's some other toxic bull crap that they grouped in with men. So I think that's something that like we need to understand. I don't even really like using the term toxic masculinity. I feel like we should just say toxic behavior, because when we put toxic and masculinity together, now you're associating toxicity with masculinity, right? And it's really just toxic behavior. Even if the same thing that you describe that a man would do, if you put a woman in that same scenario, it's still bad. It's still bad. So the fact that that person is, a man, what I mean, it doesn't lessen or worsen the situation. Telling anybody to suppress their emotions, man or woman, that's bad. That's just bad behavior, and they want to associate it with men because men are in the forefront. I mean, we live in a patriarchy, blah 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 blah. So what I would say is, please do your research on what masculinity is all about. If you know some people who are familiar with it, you can check out other videos on my channel to because I talk a lot about masculinity, and so you can figure out what it really is all about. This attack on masculinity and trying to basically turn men into women, make them soft. Oh, you can't be tough, you can't be competitive, you can't be aggressive, or you can't, what I mean? Like a lot of the things that make us men, that make us great, it's almost like you're trying to take that away because of a few men who behave poorly. You know what I'm saying? So, and really the best way to fight toxic masculinity is with masculine men, because a real man is going to check those people. You get what I'm saying? They're going to put those people in line, right? A toxic man is not going to be afraid of a feminine man, right? Those toxic masculine men, if you can call it masculine, are going to walk all over feminine men. So you need men who are tough, strong, in order to combat this type of behavior. All right, so that's all I got for you guys today. Let me know what you thought of the video. What points did you agree with? What points did you disagree with? Leave your comments below and let me know what you thought. And as always, if you got anything out this video, hit that like button. This is Agree to Disagree. I'm out.